And I'm reminded of the Zen koan, which is an unanswerable question of when a tree falls in the woods and nobody's around, does it make a sound? And so when love speaks, does love make a sound? And I've been pondering in silence since I was invited to do this talk. What is the difference between being love and doing love? And so, as we begin, I want you guys to just take a deep breath and put that question in your heart. We'll revisit it later. It's not a question that the mind can grasp. It's a question for the heart. And so I wanted to start off with a story about my first silent retreat I ever went to. It was a Ben retreat, and Annette and Kate were there, and Marilyn Harper and Joy Roby were there. And I'm not sure who all else was there, because I've been to a lot of silent retreats. But if you have not been to a silent retreat, they're really not all in silence. You have periods of time where people get in a circle and we talk about our process, right? And what we're experiencing as we're sitting in the silence. So I was so excited. It was my first silent retreat, you know. And so every time we would meet, I would say, I love you guys. And over the third time I did that, Ben said, do you know what, Bonnie? I think it would be very valuable for you to not express love to anyone for this entire retreat. And he said, and I don't mean just not verbally, you know, because we're at a silent retreat, I'm not verbally saying anything, really. I don't want you to express love even with your eyes, because I can't look at somebody without saying I love you. That's just who I am, right? And still to this day, I believe that I popped a blood vessel in my eye from holding in the volume of love that pours through this vessel. And it was pretty. And what happened as I stopped sending love constantly is the sadness came over me. It's almost like I did not know who I was in the absence of expressing love all the time. And so I had some tears. And I walked with my head down and wasn't making eye contact with anybody. And what I noticed as the retreat progressed was that as I wasn't giving love, I started receiving love more. So it started off with Joy, Marilyn Harper's assistant. She came up to me. She kind of looked left and right because we wanted to make sure Ben wasn't watching, right? And she held up an acorn. And she said, do you know what this is? And I was afraid to talk, so I go like this. She said, it's a representation of my love for you. He said you couldn't give love. He didn't say you couldn't receive love. And she handed me that acorn. And the next meal, I happened to sit next to Kate. And she reached up and touched me with her elbow. It was an elbow hug. And I was receiving her love. And then the next morning at breakfast, I showed up and I picked up my napkin. And under my napkin was this heart. I still don't know who left that heart for me, but it's been on my altar ever since. And so I was learning a lot about the balance, about not if I don't give so much, then it leaves room for me to receive. And the other thing that happened that weekend is like I had this tube to creator. It's like I was in this tube and there was only this like amazing love exchange going on between me and God. And I was really experiencing more love than I had ever experienced in my life. And it was a profound shift. And so we fast forward to about 3 weeks ago. And I got invited to come speak here. And, you know, when you're invited to speak, the universe starts preparing you right away. So my body put me on silent retreat. I was exhausted. I was sleeping like 14 hours a day. And I usually like go 5 or 6 hours. And then I'm like, ready to go. Let's go do some good for some people, right? And what I realized was that that I had gone back into that like auto healer mode. I was in this auto helper mode. And when I stopped that, because part of the guidance that I got when I was so exhausted was to stop offering healings to people, which was phenomenal. I usually when I meditate, I'm working remotely with at least 3 or 4 people every time I meditate. And then I have people that I have appointments with through the week. And I have not really been doing anything for the last few weeks. And so I've noticed not only that I'm receiving more love again, so I'm getting that same lesson from the universe again, but also that it's opening up like more flow for other gifts like intuitions, and it's opening up to more closeness with Source and more being drawn into meditation instead of being drawn into helping other people. And so as I'm contemplating this, what's the difference between being in love and being in love? These are the messages that I'm getting. And I'm realizing that doing love kind of has an attachment to the outcome, right? And it's a thought process. It's more of an emotion than a state of being. So I was at a deck. I was on a deck. I had gone to see a friend of mine perform, and I was sitting on this deck, and this homeless person came up to me and my friends and was like, "I'll show you some magic tricks for some money." And instead of engaging in that exchange that he wanted to engage in, I just started talking to him. Just started being the love and talking to him, just being, treating him just like any other person, like he was one of the friends on the deck. And he ended up getting upset with me once he realized I wasn't going to give him any money. And if I had been doing love, I think that I would have gone back to my friends and said, "Can you believe this guy?" But I didn't say anything about it. I just sent him off with love. And also, here recently, I was visiting with one of my best friends who was asking me about a romantic interest that I had a few months ago, because we were catching up. And I said, well, that ended up in a really interesting way. He started talking about his ex-girlfriend, and I started helping him see her with softer eyes. And then I ended up getting together with them and helping them talk some things out. And they're doing great. They're doing great. And she said, "Again?" It's like the 3rd time I've done that. But I know if it wasn't meant for me, then, holding a person and holding love with an open hand, that's one of the hardest things to do, right? Jim Carrey says, "Choose love and never let fear turn you away from your playful heart." And how often do we get caught up in fear that we're not going to be able to keep that love, that we're going to be rejected? But it makes such perfect outcomes when we hold love with an open hand. So, I was sitting, being love one day recently. I was waiting for a friend of mine who was walking in the park with me. And so I sat down on the bench, and I thought, what a perfect time to meditate. The sun was setting right in front of me. It was just a gorgeous day. I was over by the castle, those benches that are sculpted like flowers. They're so comfortable to sit on. If you haven't checked them out, check them out at Wilson Park. So I'm sitting here just beaming, just feeling the love of Source. And I'm seeing all the sacred geometry, and it's just really cool, like this experience that I'm having. And all of a sudden, I hear this little voice that says, "I sit." And I open my eyes, and there's this like little 1-year-old girl with a monkey hat on, right? Asking her mom if she can come sit by me. And I was like, sure. I scooted over, and we had this lovely little conversation. And then, her and her mom had other things to do, so they tootled on. And I went back to my meditation, just sitting there basking in being the love and letting the love of the universe flow through me. And I felt a presence underneath me, and I heard a man's voice behind me say, "Are you playing hide and seek under there?" And I turned around and looked, and there's this little 4-year-old boy with like blonde curly hair grinning up at me. And so I paused my meditation. I didn't really ever pause my meditation. I never lost that stillness and that love flow, right? And I had a conversation with him. And his dad said, "You seem to be having a very peaceful sunset moment. I'm sorry we disturbed your peace." And I said, "I have peace whether I'm looking at the face of a child or whether I'm looking at a sunset, so you didn't disturb my peace at all." And he said he wished that he had that much peace. And I told him he could. He just had to pursue it. So interesting things happen when you're being beloved. I have all kinds of interesting experiences with animals. Animals, in that park that day, there was a dog, as I was sitting there, that was basically walking sideways, trying to pull its owner over to it. And I looked at the dog and I said, "Oh, I want to pet you too." And so I got to pet that dog too. And I've had experiences sitting in meditation where a squirrel was on a tree and it goes like this, and it wags its tail at me. And then I go like this, and then it comes a little closer and goes like this. I've had experiences. My nephew was with me one day when I went to see the deer on the square, the reindeer that they had, and I was sharing love with this, just loving this reindeer, and it starts going, and look at me in the eyes, and it climbed up on the gate and was reaching out its tongue as far as it could to me. I was reaching out my hand as far as I could to it. And my best friend that I was talking about earlier swears a woodpecker fell in love with me at her house. She said that woodpecker would only show up when I was there, and it was always there when I came. So when you're walking as love, and things happen. Things start to shift. You start seeing all kinds of wonderful things happening around you. A man named Jason Gray said, "God made 1,000,000 doors for love to walk through. You are one of those doors. You are one of those doors." Isn't that powerful to know that that is the truth of who you are? So we're going to have an experiential meditation with this. Hey, Ned, I told her I didn't get it. It's time for meditation. So I'd like you guys to put your feet on the floor. Start finding your center. Feel that question you put in your heart. What's the difference between being loved and doing love? Take a big old deep breath into your heart. Scientists tell us that we're somewhere between 50 and 80% water liquid. Our body is actually, in its beingness, teaching us, showing us the truth of who we are. So right now, I want you to feel that flow, that fluidity that you are, the fluidity that your body is, and also the fluidity that your soul is. Feel the essence of the love that you are. You were born into this world as a newborn baby. You were nothing but love. You were a bundle of joy. And still today, that is who you are. That is your truth. This is an experiential beingness. There's no word that can describe it. There's no song that can truly describe it. Even though songs come closer than words because they have a feeling to them. This is your essence. This is your truth. Breathe that in. Know who you are. Know your true divine essence. And on your next deep breath, breathe out. Teal Swan, a very enlightened spiritual teacher, tells us, what is enlightenment? It is complete and total non-attachment to one's own thoughts. And in the absence of attachment to one's own thoughts, all that is present is love. So, trying to answer the question of what is love, if I am being love or doing love, is not a question that can be answered in the head. My good friend Stephen Kragman, grab my glasses for this one, was handing out these lovely little cards at the Visionaries of Black Conference. And I noticed that on the back of it, it said, the path of being loved. Breathe gentleness, compassion, understanding, forgiveness, allowing, gratitude, smile. Love which is unconditional and which originates from a grateful heart brings into existence a life of beauty, harmony, joy, and inspiration. He's such a wise man that we have in our community, Stephen. And yet those are all just words, right? When we talk about being loved, isn't really about words. It's like that saying, mistake the Buddha's finger pointing at the moon for the moon, right? I can sit and describe how it feels, but I really don't think there's a way for me to answer that question. I can say, what is your essence? I can say love, spirit flowing through you. I can say all of those things, but that's not really it. It kind of misses it. So being love is an inside job. And so for each of us, we just have to discover that for ourselves, sitting and being the love. And maybe finding balance between the giving and the receiving of love when we're doing love. But really, it's about sitting with it and feeling who you are more and more. And the more we sit with it, the more we're able to be that love. And so I want to conclude by saying that I feel this amazing love in the presence of all of these wonderful spirits. And I may do love and tell you I love you when I'm looking you in the eye. And at the same time that we're doing love, I think we can